distinguished guests, and my dear friends. It is a pleasure to be speaking at this year's edition of the India Economic Conclave. It is impressive how quickly this platform has become one of the primary forums for the conversation about India. This year's theme around the democratic dividend is a validation that we are now finally able to look past the pandemic. Democratic dividend has no unified definitions. Also, classification of political systems can be controversial. For all the talk about democracy, we must remind ourselves that over the 6,000 years of human civilization, democracy is relatively new form of governance. And just one country, the United States of America, is a democracy older than 200 years. One person's experience in one democracy is not representative of another's in a different democracy. Yes, we are the world's largest democracy, but at 75 years old, we are still young. Over this period, we have had a constitution that has stood firm since its adoption in 1950. Over this period, India has balanced a parliamentary democracy of over a billion people with a simultaneous transition to a multi-trillion-dollar economy. Over this period, our purchasing power parity has become the world's third largest, and our GDP has expanded 55 times. Some have called our democracy noisy, and I say that it is always better to have a young but noisy democracy over a mature but a silent democracy. It is the noise that allows us the freedom to express our ideas and thoughts. It is the noise that allows us to stay committed to democratic values. While one can argue about an optimal growth metric for a nation, what cannot be argued is the equality, dignity, and freedom are the better metrics by which we should measure nations. We all recognize that we have many challenges, no different from many other nations. But I fundamentally believe that things are falling in place for India to create one of the greatest economies the world has known. Uplifting the lives of 1.4 billion people may feel like a marathon in the short run, but it is a sprint in the long run. I will expand on this later. Nations cannot be built on a fragile assumptions of everlasting relationships. The misfired war in Europe has exposed the tentative nature of our geopolitical partnerships. If there is a learning from both the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and the COVID crisis. It is the need to urgently take control of our own national destiny. Therefore, it is a matter of pride to see our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, stand up to the with us or against us rhetoric. In this context, we witness a remarkable example of a national pride when India's vaccination drive was opened up to senior citizens. Our Prime Minister was first in line to receive the Bharat Biotech vaccines developed in India by Padma Bhushan Dr. Krishna Ila. This is the ultimate testimony of a confidence from a leader in his own citizen abilities. This is self-reliant at its best. Dear friends, over the past 2 years of crisis, we have learned that the world is not as flat as assumed. Across the world, domestically focused policies have been making a comeback, and economic borders are becoming less porous. Indeed, the pandemic should serve as a wake-up call for India that global cooperation buckles under the weight of our national priorities. The over-alignment and over-diplomacy are as much a risk as under-alignment and under-diplomacies. But our foreign policies can serve only for what is happening here at home, and uplifting the lives and prospects of our masses requires broad and solid foundations. Therefore, several of the Union government programs that have been launched over the past few years have been about establishing the socialistic base for decades of progress. Our history will look upon the impact of many of these programs as the ones that shape the India we have always aspired for. The majority of these programs are about ensuring dignity for all the citizens of our country, and dignity comes from taking a stand that ensures a greater India is an India that is visible, a more Atmanirbhar India. A greater India is an India that is visible, a more muscular India. Dear friends, it is an accepted fact that India will remain a domestic, consumption-driven economy for a long while. Without arguing about the economic theory that advocates exports, India's primary resilience is derived from the strength of its internal consumptions and the size of its market. Atmanirbhar Bharat provides the platform for our country to build on our advantages of a democracy, demographics, fair legal systems, inexpensive manpower, deep engineering talent, economics of scale, improving ease of doing business, geographic locations, and overall accepting culture. Atmanirbhar Bharat is not only a clarion call for a national self-reliance, it also creates the way for expanding our Prime Minister vision from Atmanirbhar Bharat to Bharat Par Nirbhar. This is not a statement against globalizations. The expansion and integration of trade among nations is necessary. But we must recognize that in the emerging world order, strength emerges from self-reliance, and self-reliance equates to self-confidence. India is on the cusp of a decades of growth that the world will want to tap into. Therefore, there can be no better defense for our interest at this time than Atmanirbharta. As we execute the transition from Atmanirbhar Bharat to Bharat Par Nirbhar will become the natural way forward. This is what helps build a more muscular India. My optimism comes from my belief that no nation in the world is as uniquely well placed as India to capitalize on four major vectors that will accelerate development. These are the pull from India's demographic dividend and India's growth of the middle class, and the push from the accelerated digital economy and the sustainability-focused economy. These are all trillion-dollar market opportunities, and the pace of innovations that will be the mainstream as these four forces feed off each other will make the next 3 decades the most defining years for the impact we will have on the world. The first factor is our nation's demographic dividend. That will be the envy of all. As per the 2019 economic survey, India's demographic dividend will carry it well beyond 2050. I believe this will put us on track to becoming $28 to $30 trillion economy by 2050. Despite expected downturns, I see this growth as inevitable. This is growth no other country is in a position to achieve over the next 3 decades. And this tailwind will add another $40 to $50 trillion to our country's stock market capitalizations. While recognizing that over the past decades, we have fallen short in addressing many of our health, education, and skilling issues. We finally have fundamental national programs like Ayushman Bharat for universal health coverage, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan for universal elementary education, and Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana for skill development is in place. These are social programs of a scale that the world has never witnessed, and the impact is increasingly visible as they start touching the lives of hundreds of millions of our fellow citizens. The second vector is the growth of our nation's middle class. Even in 2050, the median age of our 1.6 billion strong populations will still be just 38 years. The world will never again see a middle class as large as the one India will have. The middle class need consumer durables, cars, motorcycle, television, air conditioner, mobile phones, and refrigerators. The middle class save for his own retirement, housing, and children educations, providing the resources for fixed capital formations. The growth of this middle class will also mean that our massive informal sectors will transition to more formal, wage earning, and medium scale tax paying business entities. All of these aspects are critical combination to strengthen links among democracy, free press, education, and fair elections. The safety net supporting our vision of Atmanirbharta is private consumption, which has accounted for 70% of India's growth since 2000. India, therefore, stands to benefit hugely from this protected and a growing strength of our domestic consumptions and the associated increase in incomes. This rise will have a profound impact on India's engagement with the rest of the global economies as India becomes the largest consumer market. It is this scale of middle class consumptions that will give us the leverage to transition from Atmanirbhar Bharat to Bharat Par Nirbhar. It is this scale of middle class consumptions that will help build a more muscular India. The third vector has to do with digitizations. The combination of India's youth and growth in the middle class will accelerate our nation's digital transformation to create a new opportunities. The opportunity has no parallel. I believe that the digital ecosystems we are creating will generate a significant additional uplift of 100 to 200 basis points to our anticipated 7 to 8% nominal GDP growth rate. Our government's role in enabling these transformations is unmatched. Today, Indians have a universally adopted digital payments. In fact, India's retail payment systems is now a global benchmark. 99% of our countrymen have Aadhaar numbers. And this identity system has been linked to bank accounts and mobile phone numbers, resulting in the JAM or Jandan Aadhaar Mobile Trinity, thereafter BHIM or the Bharat Interface for Money, created the interoperating backbone to connect all banks and consumers. As the full range of banking services like lending, investments, insurance, all go down the open banking path, the revolutions in the broad financial markets will be a case study for the world. This is sheer brilliance, executed flawlessly. This fintech revolutions is now helping accelerate the fourth industrial revolutions, where human and machines are all interconnected, to be then followed by the Web 3.0 and a metaverse revolutions, where the physical and digital world start fusing. We have created the perfect storm of middle-class demand, availability of talent, and capital inflows. The results speak for themselves. VC funding in India first crossed $1 billion in 2015. And this year, VC funding is expected to touch $45 billion. That is a 45x acceleration in just 7 years. Our nation now boasts of 60,000 startups and 81 unicorns, making it the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. 2022 has also started with a bang, with about 1 unicorn being added every week. The startup world has never seen such accelerations. These implications are yet to be factored into India's growth rate and job creation capabilities. In less than 5 years, we will be creating millions of opportunities for people with the appetite to skill and reskill themselves. Our domination of the digital economy will be the ultimate manifestations of a Bharat Par Nirbhar movement. Fourth and finally, the need for sustainability and a renewable power is yet another game changer for India. Solar power today is globally the fastest growing source of energy. Over the past decade, the price of solar panels has dropped by 90%. And over the next decade, we will continue to see price drops of the same magnitude within the solar ecosystems. The fact is that the marginal cost of solar power is headed to zero. The ability of this almost zero-cost electron to economically split a water molecule and create 100% green hydrogen in the future is a certainty. India is also fortunate to be geographically well positioned to generate efficient renewable power. For India, The combination of solar and wind power, coupled with the green hydrogen, opens up unprecedented possibilities. All this enable decentralized generation and decentralized distributions, which will be transformative, especially for our rural populations. Decentralized power gives us the option to accelerate the micro-sizing of everything in a massive increments. It enables micro-manufacturing, micro-agriculture, micro-water, micro-healthcare, micro-banking, micro-education, everything that India's rural populations needs it. Also has hydrogen and its derivatives replace significant amounts of our imports of crude oil, natural gas and coal. I would go as far as to state that the revolutions in an alternative energy technologies opens up the possibility that someday India can become a net green energy exporter. This was impossible to even contemplate just a year back. All of the four levers I have mentioned also opens up increased flow of a foreign direct investment. Even in the midst of the pandemic year, India had record FDI inflow of a $65 billion. The projected inflow in 2022-23 is expected to reach a record $100 billion, making India the world's third largest recipient of FDI, thereby showcasing the world's confidence in India. While I have taken this opportunity to express my considerable optimism about India's growth potentials, I recognize that there are challenges to address. These broadly include healthcare, education, skill development, manufacturing share of the GDP, and infrastructure availability. However, it is my firm belief that we will address most of these challenges in the decades ahead as we implement the many far-reaching government policies. Our economy gets bigger and stronger, and the positive impact of digitization starts being felt in every single one of these areas. For now, I see India as a landscape of endless possibility, spread over decades, impacting the lives of billions. Dear friends, let me end by explaining what I had said at the start of my talk. Uplifting the lives of 1.4 billion people may feel like a marathon in a short run, but it is a sprint in the long run. We are approximately 10,000 days away from the year 2050. Over this period, I anticipate India will add about $25 trillion to its economy. This translates to an addition of $2.5 billion to our GDP every day until 2050. Over this period, I also anticipate India will add about $40 trillion to its stock market capitalizations. This translates to an addition of $4 billion to the market every day until 2050. Over this period, India will have eliminated all forms of poverty from our country. Stunning as these numbers are, we have a real shot of making this happen in just 10,000 days. 10,000 days over which we would have built a far more Atmanirbhar India, a far more Bharat par Nirbhar India. And a far more muscular India, providing a dignified life for all of its citizens. Dear friend, this is what democratic dividend must be all about, and my personal convictions about India's democratic dividend has never been higher. Thank you. Jai Hind.